Welcome to Ensuring Success, the podcast that takes you on a journey to unlock the keys of achieving not just fleeting victories, but sustainable and fulfilling success. This is Ensuring Success. Welcome back to another episode of Ensuring Success. I'm your host, Natalie Crawford, and I'm joined today by Mike Baas, Regional President of Property and Casualty, South Division. He started his journey with Houchins Insurance Group over 25 years ago as an intern and is now an integral part of our senior leadership team. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to get into your journey shortly, but before we begin, we will start with our staple question for all of our guests. How do you define success for yourself, and then in turn, how do you ensure that you achieve it and maintain it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so for me, the definition of success is, I look at it through a couple different lenses. Number one, I look at it through the lens of our people, because success is not about me. It's about the people here. It's about the people that we lead and we have influence over. So, number one, are they growing? Are they growing personally? Are they growing professionally? Or are they developing into the best version of themselves, if you will? Because to me, it's about more than just business and insurance. It's about who they are and how are they growing personally. Are they challenged and fulfilled at work? And that, to me, makes a successful vocation. If you feel challenged, if you feel fulfilled. And then really the last thing is, are they serving well and embodying our mission, vision, and values? And if those things are all met, I'd say that's a good definition of success. For the organization, it's pretty simple. It all kind of boils down to, are we in proper alignment? So across all facets of our organization, are we moving cohesively towards our end goal, whatever that may be? But those goals are also measurable through our KPIs. Are we achieving, are we writing the new business we're supposed to? Is our retention level at the minimum standard we expect? Are we hitting our growth targets? How are we doing on our measurables of best places to work? So that's really how I define success. How do I ensure success? To me, it's about discipline, really, and doing the things every day I know that I have influence over to affect positive outcomes in our people and in our organization.
All right, so I've got here, you started in Houchins Insurance Group in 1997. Is that correct?
It is.
All right.
Were you born in 1997?
I was 2.
Okay.
I was 2. So you've been here for over 25 years at this point. So let's start with your internship. What got you to Houchins Insurance Group? How did you start here? And what are some of the things you learned throughout that internship?
So I was a junior at Western Kentucky University when I began my internship here. I was working nights at the Corvette plant for a company called Ryder Logistics. I was living in the fraternity house, working nights, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And my younger brother, AJ, was a freshman at Western. And he called me up one day and he said, man, you're killing yourself. I know you are. And he said, your grades are horrible. But I was working nights and living in a fraternity house. Of course,
right.
My grades are horrible.
Yeah.
He said, man, I've got this internship at Van Meter Insurance. I don't know anything about insurance. They've got producers and marketing and a lot of other things going on. He said, I don't know anything about it, but I think you should come check it out. So I did. My only goals at the time were to just get some stability and normalcy back in my life. So I started as an intern. I was working both for ERS, our TPA, and for Van Meter, just doing dual roles. But really back then, and I think still today, my internship was about just doing whatever was asked of you.
Right.
How do you show up when somebody says, I need you to go to my house and mulch my yard? Or one of the things I had to do, let me rephrase that. One of the things I had the opportunity to do every week was that there was a gentleman, an executive in our firm named Tim Renfro. I had the opportunity to pick him up every Monday at 5 a.m. at his house, take him to the airport, and every Wednesday afternoon I'd pick him up at about 4 o'clock and bring him back. And that was arduous for a college student, but I got a lot of windshield time with an executive too.
Right.
And got to pick his brain when he'd actually make time to talk to me. And so that was great, but for me it was more about the lessons I learned as an intern were just about showing up, being willing to do whatever was asked of you, but most importantly, with a good attitude. And you never knew what you were going to be asked to do each day. And that was neat. Mr. Van Meter was still here at the time. So he could have you doing yard work to bartending parties to cleaning out his pool to running them all over the state. So it was just a neat time to be here.
Now, when you were here as an intern, did you think during that time that you would be where you are now, or that it would even lead into your first professional environment?
You know, I hoped for it. Once I started to get my arms around what we did at the time was Van Meter Insurance Agency, I really didn't know, but I knew it looked like something I wanted to be a part of.
Right.
And so I hoped through just the work we did, the attitude we had, just AJ and I just we would just do whatever we had to do. Saturdays, Sundays. It was a sweet season of life, I'll say that. But no, I really didn't have expectations, but I did have hopes.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it all worked out because you and AJ are both still here. So that's a plus.
We are.
Whenever we talk about some of your career path and how you've gotten to where you are as regional president now, what, after your internship, what took place next? What were some of those steps that led you to where you are now?
Yes, I'll just kind of walk you through, if okay, I'll just kind of walk you through my career. And there was a pivotal moment early on as well that really helped to form and shape the rest of the balance of my career and where I am today. So in 1999, I graduated with a degree in finance. Brian Sewell was leading the surety department here at the time, and that was really the only opening. And the reason I think I got the job was because I was the only one that could even point to what a balance sheet was. I may not have been able to read it very well and decipher it, but I at least knew what it was. And so he offered me a job as a surety producer in 1999 and just had a fantastic start to my career. We had one surety company in particular that was very aggressive and really helped us to write a lot of new business, just in and around the whole state. And it was pretty neat. So I was in production. Your goal right out of the gate is to validate. And what validation is when you build and develop a book of business large enough for the agency's salary to cease and you to go 100% on commission.
Right.
You are now gaining profitability back to the organization, and you are no longer really an investment, but now you are returning on that investment.
Right.
And I got to a validated position in less than 2 years, which at the time was pretty unheard of. And I was really proud of that. And I did that because I had a great teacher in Brian, and we had a great market. Well, this pivotal point I mentioned earlier happened in 2001. So 2 years into my career as a producer, our number one surety carrier, our most aggressive company, one day we found out they were exiting the surety business overnight. And we had a lot of our business there. Not only that, but the financial collapse of 2001 was happening all about the same time. So we had a collective book of about $800,000 right now. Overnight, that book went to about $200,000.
Wow.
And so if you're compensated off the size of your book, you can imagine what happened to our compensation. So I went from having a balance in my producer account that my draw was taken out of, our commissions go into draw taken out. It had a positive balance for some time. I went from having a positive balance to owing the agency $17,000.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to a 24-year-old
yes.
Who was just starting to date what is now his wife.
Right.
And it was just spiraling so fast. And Brian and I were on the road one day, and it was really, let me back up. It got to be a really dark spot for me,
of course,
both professionally and emotionally and mentally. And I just didn't think there was a path forward for me at Van Meter anymore. So I started, rather than cold calling, rather than working my way out of it, I started working on my resume. Because I figured, well, heck, this isn't working out. I'm going to go get into medical sales.
Right.
Something.
Yeah.
Well, unbeknownst to me, Brian saw me working on my resume one day. He didn't tell me. he and I head to Nashville a couple days later. Our two client advisors were based out of our Nashville office at the time. On the way back, I remember it like it was yesterday, we're driving up Ridgetop, and he said, "So you just going to quit on me? Saw you working on your resume. Where are you going to work?" And I just lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, ugly cry. It just all came out.
Sure.
And, I just appreciated the grace in which he handled that situation. He said, "Look," he said, "don't quit on me." He said, "I don't know what we're going to do, but I do know we're going to work our way out of this." And we did. And so from there, we started writing property and casualty insurance, and I'll get into some real key things later about what happened in that moment. But I eventually took over the leadership of our surety department. Brian handed that over to me as his responsibilities here were increasing. And we collectively grew that department from $700,000 at the time to about $2.7 million. In 2017, there was a transition in our Nashville office. The leadership decided to move on, and I was offered the opportunity to move my family to Nashville, and do my best to breathe some new life and energy into that office. And that has been the greatest joy and also the greatest challenge in my career the last 7 years. We took an office that was really struggling. The culture was pretty toxic. The people had just not been treated as well as they should have over the years.
Right.
There were a couple producers left in that office, Chris Simmons and Scott Short. I brought down three young men from our intern program here in Bowling Green who couldn't spell insurance. And we just formed we built an office and formed a team and just collectively put our heads down and went to work. And so been leading that office for the last 7 years. And then October of 22 had the opportunity with our growth here. Brian needed to step into additional roles. And we divided up the property and casualty side to North and South divisions, and he asked me to step into the president role of the South. So here we are. That was a
quite the journey.
Long answer to a short question.
I know, it's good. We're going to dig into some of those points, one of which specifically being that move to Nashville. I would say that was probably a pretty pivotal moment in your life professionally and personally to pick your family up and move them down there for that. I know you had 2 young boys at the time and your wife, and you guys had pretty much established yourselves here in Bowling Green and then took off down there. So when you did that, obviously to step into that leadership role, was that something that you felt prepared for and that you thought was going to be a natural fit for you, or did that take a lot of work on your end?
Yes, all the way around. I did feel like the time was right. Stephanie and I, my wife Stephanie and I, our boys Will and Ben were 7 and 8 at the time. So that's a pivotal moment, a pivotal time for them. They had developed roots in their school here. We had been here. I'd been in this community since I was 8 years old. Had a great church family, had tremendous friends. But it felt like it was time for the next challenge for all of us, for our family and for me personally and professionally. Right. And we made the decision really quickly that we were going. I thought I was ready. Turns out things are never as they seem.
No.
They're never as good as they seem. They're definitely never as bad as they seem. And,
right.
I learned more about people, resilience, the importance of goals, the importance of resets along the way. Because I guess the best way to describe how we've ended up where we are today as an office down there is we just failed forward.
Yep.
We made mistakes every day, but we set out a collective vision of where we were going and where we were going to take this office and our impact on the community. And we got up every day and we did absolutely everything we could to get closer to that vision and to bring everybody along with us. And you look up sometimes 5 years later and you see the members of your team are having such a positive impact in the community, and they're having an impact on the customers that they get the opportunity to serve. And they're making a difference every day, whether that's in each other, whether that's in their customers, whether that's in the community. And it's just, to me, like I said earlier, it is the thing I'm most proud of, to see what we have collectively built, how we've done it, who we've done it with.
Right.
It's just,
yeah.
I don't know. You see me smiling, they can't, but
yeah.
It just gives me a sense of pride and fulfillment that it's hard to describe.
Yeah. Well, and as it should, because Nashville is one of our top performing offices in the organization with a relatively small team in comparison to some of our other offices. So you guys are killing it down there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you moved to Nashville, kind of got that office back on track with the help of everybody else down there. So with each level, you talked about how you stepped into the surety management role and then into the Nashville and then obviously now over our region. What was your experience like with each increased level of responsibility?
My experience. A lot of times, everybody's familiar with the term drinking through a fire hose. I think that's always what any person who steps into a new role experiences at first. I will say this, Natalie. The reason we've had any modicum of success in any role that I've stepped into, I give so much credit back to my mentor. Brian he's been my mentor since he hired me, and he's been my business partner since that day driving up Ridgetop. He has shown me how to goal plan. He's shown me the importance of writing goals down, surrounding myself with people that hold me accountable. So every step along the way, I have had him to go back to and lean on in times of whether it was uncertainty. Hey, every leader faces doubt. We just do. But he's showed me how to be decisive and take action and move forward. And so, yes, each role has had its own set of challenges, but I'm just fortunate that I've had the mentorship from people before me that if any of those, if I'm ever not 100% sure about what direction to go or what decision to make, one of the real things that makes our organization special is we also lead communally. And I know that I can call Andy. I know that I can call Brian. I know that I can call whomever to bounce ideas off of. To help kind of shore up the direction and the thought process. So I don't know if that answered the question. But yeah, I guess for me, the transition from each role, though challenging, though a lot, it makes it a lot easier when you've got great people and great mentors around you that can help soften that journey, if you will.
Yeah. I imagine that obviously, and you said that going to Nashville was the biggest step, but I know that was not a quick journey to pulling that office out of the hole that it was kind of in. How did you stay motivated throughout that? Obviously your mentors, but I mean, you also had 2 young kids at home. You were doing a lot all at once. How did you stay motivated through that process?
It's a great question. So I'll tell you a quick story that'll help frame this a little bit. So when we agreed to move, Stephanie, my wife, says, Mike, 5 years. She said, I'm going to give you 5 years. You go do what you have to do to get this thing moving in the right direction. I'll hold down the fort. I'll let you know when I need you. You go to work. So number one, I had the support at home that made that transition easier. If there was conflict there and the support wasn't what it was, it would have never worked. Number two, how did I stay motivated? We burned the boats. I mean, literally, you probably heard of that term before. There was no jumping on the boat and coming back to Bowling Green. And I knew I asked a lot of people to follow me down there and help me build this office out. There was no coming back. So the motivation was there is no coming back. We had to make this work. And I think what really what really kept me motivated was I knew that I could not, as the leader of that office, I could not ask anything of anybody that walked in those doors that I wasn't willing to set the standard for myself.
Right.
And so whether that was production, I knew that my efforts had to lead the way and set the tone and the example. Whether that was communal involvement, whether that was civic organizations, associations, they had to see me going and sacrificing and pouring into those things first. And that's what happened. We just all did. And so I knew I had to set the standard that everybody else had to honestly rise up to. Yeah. And if I didn't, then it wasn't going to work. And we did. And it's pretty cool. But circling all the way back to the beginning, none of that would have been possible if I didn't have the support I had at home.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. She pulled you through that?
She still pulls me through stuff. Are you kidding me? In spite of myself.
Yeah. Now that you're in your position as regional president, what are some of the lessons, probably maybe even the harder moments that you've had that have gotten you to this point, but that guide your actions as a regional president?
I touched on some of those before, about just making sure you continually, as a leader, set the tone and set the standard of excellence for work. Attitude to me is so important.
Yeah.
And everybody knows, everybody that I work closely with every day knows there's 3 expectations I have. If you wake up and if we're fortunate enough to wake up, number 1, and fortunate enough, number 2, to walk through the doors, 3 things is all I ask for. When you walk in, have a great attitude. Number 2, give me your best effort that day. Some days your effort's going to be better than others.
Right.
And number 3, be coachable. And I think being coachable and being a lifelong learner is something that's integral in leadership.
Right.
Those are the lessons that I've learned, that I implore every day, that I still have to follow too. And that especially starts with me. In the role I'm in today, I'm still a producer.
Right.
My number 1 role is to produce and manage and grow a book of business. So in addition to the leadership and management responsibilities we have, I still have to produce. So my actions have to align with production.
Right.
And so every day I find 5 things to do every day before lunch that are production-related activities for new business. And those look different every day. But those are the things I have to do to stay sharp in production and to continue to set that standard of excellence for our team.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Was that a hard balance to strike for you at first, as far as management of a book and management of people?
It is. And I think it is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing we do as producers sometimes is picking up the phone and calling on new business. And if you can give a producer a reason to not do that, the trap is getting sucked into working on your business. Or maybe I should re-say that. The trap is working in your business and not on your business. So you can busy yourself with work that's not production related to avoid the hard task. And so I've seen a lot of people along the way take on additional responsibilities, and their production volume drops almost instantly.
Right.
Because you can busy yourself and look like you're accomplishing a lot, and really nothing's moving forward.
Yeah. Well, so that'll take us into our next point, which is that I know you're big on goal setting. I know it's something that you offer to help members of your team and your office with. I think for a lot of people that can be hard, for people that are not, long-term, big picture thinkers, because not everybody is. So for people who don't know where to start or what to do to get them started on goal setting for the year or for 5 years, what advice would you give them?
So there's fascinating studies all around the importance of goal setting and to what level, and then the degree of success you experience once you do participate in goal setting. Number 1, so there's one quote I think about every year, right around this time of year. I set a lot of business goals for our fiscal year, which is 10/1 to 9/30, October 1 to September 30th. And then I set a lot of life, personal, spiritual, financial, fitness goals for the calendar year. And so I would start with this question. This question comes from an author named Matthew Kelly. And his quote is, "How do I want my life to look different 1 year from now than it is today? And if it's not, who am I going to blame?" And so I think about that a lot this time of year. Okay, what do I want? What do I want to look different? So for me, do I want to be less soft around the edges? Do I want to lose 10 pounds? Yes. Okay. So I write down specifically, I want to be X weight at this time.
Right.
If I want my financial condition to improve, well, specifically, what does that look like? Does that look like additional money in the bank?
Mm-hmm.
Does that look like just more operating margin for you personally? Does that look like a vacation? And you write that down. The same can go with your spiritual goals. You know, what does a more peaceful environment look like for you? If you want more peace in your life, if you want a stronger personal relationship with the higher power that you believe in, what specifically does that look like? Okay, so now I know that I need to spend every morning in the Word. I need some quiet time of prayer and reflection, and I need to journal. So I set goals around that. But really, so once you figure out where it is you want to be a year from now, you just break those down into more manageable goals. So what do I need to do this month, the month of January that's coming up? What do I need to do in January specifically to be closer to my goal of losing 10 pounds? More importantly, what do I need to do the first week of January in order to make improvement towards? More importantly, what do I need to do tomorrow?
Right.
And then I think goal setting, and it's a lot with ambition as well, professionally. Now, I think it's all about just controlling what you can control that day that aligns with your goals and moves you in the right direction. It's really that simple. If I want to lose 10 pounds, I know today, when I woke up at the Embassy Suites here in town, I can't go crush pancakes.
Unfortunately,
I want to.
Right.
More than anything. I haven't had a pancake in forever. But no, I had to go get on the treadmill. And I knew I needed to take in some protein and a bunch of water.
Yep.
And so the next thing I can control is what I eat at lunch. I control how much I walk. I can control how much I barely can control myself around junk food. But it is that simple.
Right.
And it's just controlling what we can control and moving towards that next right decision towards the goal.
Right.
But the biggest thing in all that is just writing them down. And that started that day with Brian when he and I were driving up Bridgetop. We met the next morning. He said, in my office, 7 a.m. So we got up. I met him here. We wrote down 5 specific goals centered around our business that we're going to change. And they were how much business we were going to write the next 12 months. It was how much business we were going to refer, how much life insurance, what my producer statement balance was going to be, and how much our book was going to grow. So what our book was going to be at the end of the year, how much new business we were going to write, how much new business we were going to refer, how much life insurance, and what that producer statement balance was going to be. It was negative 17,000 when I woke up that morning.
Right.
And we wrote down where it was going to be a year from now. And I kept that. It was on a manila folder. Back in the day, we used to have folders, file folders, literally of prospects. And I had it in my office, and I looked at it every single day. And I knew that if I saw those goals and my actions that moment, that day, weren't aligning with the end result, I needed to have a quick shift and go to the next activity that would. Wouldn't you know it, we hit every one of them. I've been doing it every year since.
Right.
So
Incredible.
there's great power in writing down goals. So if you want to take it one step further, and I started doing this with a couple guys, one of which works here, Chris Wiseman. He and I and 2 other gentlemen that we went to church with formed an accountability and goal setting group. And we met every month, and we wrote out our SMART goals every December. We met every month. We had certain goals every month built around our bigger goals. And it was brutally honest every time we got together. But we all knew we wanted to be held to a higher standard, so we surrounded ourselves with people that would hold us accountable to that.
Right.
And we gave each other permission to speak truth in a spirit of love, of course.
Yeah.
But to really challenge us. And that's when things really accelerated for me.
Right.
So
Sure.
I just encourage people to start with goals, whatever those are, they're no bad goals. Write them down, and then have some people that can support and challenge you. It's amazing. It'll change your life.
You know, in a sales role, in any role, but in a sales role specifically, I know that everyone in our organization has specific goals and, measures that they have to meet. I would say that those don't always happen. And when they don't, I can imagine that that's pretty defeating, especially for somebody who's maybe newer at it, or even someone that's a seasoned sales professional, to not meet your goal and the expectation that was set for you. What are some, strategies of kind of pulling yourself through that whenever you do feel defeated in that aspect?
And that's a great question, because it happens, right? Happens to everybody. We miss, we slip up, we have a tough month, we have a tough year. Life happens that will create disturbances in our routines and our rhythm. My advice, and what I have done when those situations have arose, is I just have to reset. And by resetting for me, it's, and even if it's during the week, I would leave the office 3 o'clock. I'd go to a coffee shop or somewhere quiet where I can just think, and I would look at where I wanted to be, the goals that I set, where we were at that point, or if we missed them. And then I look at what were my actions and the things that I could control. Because a lot of times we can't control if clients get bought.
Right.
We can't control if someone decides not to do business with us. What I can control is how many people I called on. What I can control is the client experience with me and our team. What I can control is my actions to generate more opportunities. Oftentimes, our failure to meet our own standard of where we wanted to go, if we take a really hard and honest look at it, usually came back to something. Our actions didn't meet those desired standards.
Right.
So you just reset, because here's the beauty of it. Tomorrow is going to be new, and you're going to have another chance to create action that creates momentum, that creates the next measure of success. And sometimes you just got to take action and move forward. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. There is time for that.
Right.
Stop feeling sorry for yourself. It's okay. Just move forward. Just take the next actionable step to get you back on the right track.
Right. I know a lot of people talk about this generation and the upcoming generation, and even my generation as a millennial, and how we want maybe to take the easy way or take the shortcut, or want to come in not at an entry level. And I think that some people may see your journey and just see the bookends of it, intern to regional president. And that's a big step. And they see that and don't know all the in-betweens that we've talked about. I'd say let's take a minute and talk about how long you've been on this journey and how you've gotten to where you are through that, and what you would say to someone who does come in and say, well, I want to do what you did. I want to be a regional president, and maybe comes in with some expectation of that happening in less than 25 years.
I'd say I'm excited for you, because I love people with that kind of ambition. I just do. I think I think every organization needs that. Don't be so hard, first of all, on the millennials.
Yeah.
I think they get a really bad rap.
We do.
You all do, and I don't think it's all entirely fair either. What I have found in working with a younger generation is that success is defined differently in the generation you're a part of. The number one thing I've found is that purpose is more important than anything else. Purpose and vision and impact. So a lot of what I have to do, what I get the opportunity to do, is helping to craft vision and purpose for every role. And we have it. Hey, look, patience, yes, it takes time to go from entry-level role in our organization to senior leadership. But it is absolutely possible, because I promise you, we all hear this a lot. If I can do it, anybody can do it. No, really. I was an average student, average at best. But I knew how to work hard. And the first thing anybody that comes into our organization we should do as a responsibility to them is make sure they have a great mentor that's ahead of them, obviously, and that can show them a path forward. There has to be a desire on their part to continually want more, but why?
Right.
So I'll go back to the purpose. Why do you want that next role? And be evaluating and thinking on that a lot, because that's what drives you in the morning. That's a question I ask when I interview people is, hey, what gets your feet on the ground? What gets you out of bed? What is that purpose? So always be defining your purpose. But to be successful here at Houchins Insurance Group, number one, you be a great person. You be a great teammate. One thing that I look for when we develop talent and leaders is who's willing to do more than is expected and asked.
Right.
And with a great attitude. We have the 3 C's of service here, right? It's something we're really proud of. But if that's modeled, if that's service to our client, if we act in service to our co-owners and co-workers, if we constantly act in service to our community and doing more than is ever asked for a positive impact, I promise you, you will escalate up the ladder, probably quicker than I did.
Right. Okay. So as we wrap up, what would intern Mike think to see of Regional President Mike Baas?
What took you so long? No, just kidding. It's been a long road. I've spent more time here than I have outside of this organization. Intern Mike would be shocked to see where the older version of that individual is today.
Right.
Because I made so many mistakes early on, and I was extending more grace than I ever should have been.
Right.
Which is part of the reason that, look, I try to walk in a spirit of gratitude every day, not just for my role here, but for all the opportunities it affords to impact other people's lives and to help the people that I have a small amount of influence in somehow be the best version of themselves. Most importantly, not here.
Right.
Most importantly, at home. Most importantly, in their community. All that feeds into being great insurance professionals. So I think intern Mike would look at the 47-year-old graying, balding version of that guy today, and I think he'd tip his hat. But I think he'd also say the best is yet to come.
Yeah. So, in contrast of that, if you could go back and have a conversation with that intern version of yourself, what would be the thing you would say?
Make the best decision you can that's in front of you, and surround yourself with better people. Because it took me a while to figure that lesson out.
That's a hard one.
It is a hard one. But when you realize that you really are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, the most important thing you can do is surround yourself with people you admire, respect, and want to be more like. And maybe not be more like, but maybe emulate more in your actions. So I would encourage that to my younger self. And I would also say, remember to have fun, because the journey I've been on has been filled with more fun, more laughs, more great relationships. There are so many stories about various nicknames I've had, about just I could tell you stories about us being on the road for days at a time, traveling through the Southeast, just drumming up business, trying to find the best barbecue restaurant in the state of Alabama. I mean, just there was so much fun had, and I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in where we're trying to go that we forget that the journey is an absolute blast.
Yeah.
And enjoy the people you get to do it with.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate, as an organization, all of the leadership and all of the qualities you bring to us and everything you have to offer. And a shout out to Mike for those 3 C's of service that he mentioned. Those were bred straight from him.
from our team in Nashville.
Yeah. But we really do appreciate everything you do. I appreciate you coming on today to talk with us and share your journey. That has been quite the journey, but you're doing great in everything you do, and we really appreciate it.
Natalie, thank you. I really am honored to serve. Thank you.
Thank you.